And today we are doing a special exploring tour with the Collin County History Museum. We had 174 people registered for today's event, which is amazing. And we have with us Pat Rogers. Now, the topic of today's event is a night on the town. So we're going to learn what that looked like many, many years ago. So I am going to turn it over to Pat, and Pat's going to tell you all about it.
Okay, thank you, Zoe and Dan and Celebration Magazine for this very special opportunity to share our history of entertainment in McKinney with Night on the Town. My name is Pat Rogers. I'm a historian and a storyteller at the Collin County History Museum, located in downtown McKinney in the beautiful old Federal Post Office. And I'm so happy to see all of you on Zoom. And I can't tell you, I feel like I already know you. This has been great getting to hear you and whatnot. So I hope you enjoy our story. So we're going to begin, and we're going to move it over to the slides. And there you go. Okay, we're called Night on the Town, the story and the history of entertainment in McKinney. Now, this is made possible. It's a very special word of appreciation to the McKinney Community Development Corporation, MCDC, for the funding that makes this time together possible. Also to Celebration Magazine and Collin County History Museum for the opportunity to share Night on the Town with all of you. So let's begin our story. The very first pioneers to this wilderness that we know today as Collin County came in January of 1842. They were led by Dr. William Throckmorton. Well, the region was as wild and savage as it was vast. As pioneer communities grew, they supported each other in work and in play. Each settler was given a gun, ammunition, and help building a cabin. Families and communities gathered for house raisings or barn raisings. During these events, people would gather to complete the new home or barn and then celebrate with the big accomplishment with food and dancing. These early Texans also socialized at quilting parties, picnics, church events, anything for entertainment. Music played a major role in their entertainment. People of all ages participated in square dances with the fiddle and the accordion accompanying the dancers. Dances were sometimes held to celebrate weddings or just for fun. Participants sometimes traveling 40 miles to gather for these special occasions. Well, the year is now 1847, and the little village of McKinney has been named the county seat for the newly formed Collin County. It's named after, of course, Collin McKinney. Now, you know, he was a distinguished surveyor, a preacher, a merchant, an Indian fighter, an author, and a signer of the Texas Declaration of Independence. Now, by 1850, this little shantytown post village of McKinney had a population of 192 brave souls. Just 5 years later, in 1855, the population had grown to 1,950. Now, the picture you're looking at here is the oldest known existing photo of McKinney, and you're looking at the west side of the square at all the little wooden businesses. And this picture was supposedly taken between 1860 and 1865. Well, for sport and entertainment, every McKinney businessman had his own race horse. Then he entered those horses into races. These races were attended by very large crowds. And the most famous horse race of all in McKinney history was held right on Tucker Street in 1855. A.J. Jack Tucker was an early settler to McKinney. He was a great horseman and a promoter of horse races that drew great crowds from all over the state. He laid out a racetrack, which is now on Tucker Street, that was named for him. His claim to fame was the great match race between the legendary Steel Dust and Monmouth. Both were Kentucky-bred horses. Jack laid out the quarter-mile track on Tucker Street. It was a 1-mile race starting on the east end of the street, going all the way to Wattle Street and back to the finish line. Well, the day of the great race, businesses came to a standstill. All the judicial courts were closed, hotels were filled to capacity, and everything that was not nailed down went home with Steel Dust when he won from our local favorite, Monmouth. Well, through the years, there have been many different forms of entertainment, of course, in McKinney, but the very first circus came in 1857 when McKinney was just a small cluster of log cabins built around the public square. The great circuses began to come to town with their thrilling parades, led by the man riding a snow-white horse. He admonished the crowd, "Hold your horses, the elephants and calliope are coming." Well, the floats were spectacular, with as many as 16 tiny horses with brightly colored plumes attached to their harnesses, pulling the brightly painted wagons. The roaring of wild animals in steel-barred cages was enough excitement for any boy and girl. Well, Buffalo Bill came to town too in 1884 with a long parade. And of course, he was riding a white horse, and he was followed by 100 whooping cowboys in full regalia and 100 brightly clad Indians on their ponies. Well, Annie Oakley, of course, was there, the famed markswoman. And she was a part of the show as well. And there were 2 Indian chiefs, Kicking Bear and Short Bull, right in the middle. Christmas 1884, and there was a new opera house on the square in downtown McKinney. And you'll see the arrow at the top of your screen there pointing to it. It was the beautiful and elegant brick Herd Opera House, the new place for pleasure and fun. Well, a Christmas ball kicked off the holiday season, a beautiful occasion with the women exquisitely dressed and coiffured, the men dashing and debonair. The McKinney Enquirer stated that nowhere else can you find more elegant ladies nor men with such impeccable manners as in McKinney. In 1891, Thomas Edison heralded the coming of the modern movie era with the invention of his kinetoscope, and that allowed a single viewer to watch a strip of illuminated film that moved. That was our first movie. Well, it was a big hit at the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, and the Ferris wheel made its debut that year at the fair as well, the very first Ferris wheel. It was the big attraction too. Well, meanwhile, at the Herd Opera House, the musical comedies and vaudeville shows were the main attractions. In 1892, the Christmas performances starred the Barlow Brothers minstrels, featuring Master Eddie Percy, a handsome boy singer who caught the house by storm. In September of 1893, the comedy drama The Burglar by foremost American playwright Gus Thomas came to the Herd. He had rave reviews from audiences and critics alike. Well, during the Victorian period, people were highly interested and believed in the science of mind reading. Naturally, these mind readers were highly sought after as good entertainment. One of the most famous mind readers of the day was Paul Alexander Johnston, who came to the herd in May of 1894, and he's pictured here in the center. He was famous because the prior year he drew national attention when he went to the Wind Cave in South Dakota, where he was blindfolded after a tiny pinhead had been hidden in the cave, but he found it. Newspapers record that it took him 3 days, but Johnston found that pinhead. And after great acclaim across the nation, he took his phenomenal mind reading skills on the road. The McKinney Democrat said, quote, Paul Alexander Johnston, a celebrated mind reader, held forth at the herd. He performed wonderful feats which caused considerable discussion among our citizens regarding the science. Meanwhile, in 1895, the Lumiere brothers showed the first commercial movie in Paris. They opened the first cinema the following year in 1896. The first movie theater opened in the United States that same year, 1896. The hit movie was The Arrival of a Train, produced by the Lumineers, and I have seen it, and it's at least 4 to 6 seconds long. So that was the very first one. In December 21st, 1904, Archie Shepherd Moving Pictures brought his traveling show to the herd. He had just given New York City its first moving pictures as a theatrical attraction on December 3rd, 1904. He opened 18 days later in McKinney. How about that? Archie was the largest exhibitor of moving pictures in the world. And while the papers of the day don't record what his traveling company brought to McKinney, he regularly showed The Great Train Robbery. And that, of course, is one of the most famous movies in history. Despite being only 12 minutes long, the little film set the formula for movie westerns. Murders, robberies, chases, and gunfights were just what the movie audiences were clamoring to see. Well, on February 23rd, 1906, the March King, John Philip Sousa, appeared with his band. World-renowned and a superstar of his day, an appearance by Sousa was a very special event. It was an electrifying performance. The McKinney Courier stated on the 17th of February that the house was filled to capacity, and the Stars and Stripes forever lives as a local legend in our McKinney history. Grand opera houses across America, though, began to disappear in the early 1900s, and little theaters or photo playhouses began to open. They became a source of pride to the citizens of every small town and large city. By 1907 in McKinney, one such little theater opened, appropriately named the Nickel Dime, for the 5-cent and 10-cent price of admission. It specialized in 1 or 2 real moving pictures, as well as live performances, such as Madame Reno. There she is, the world's foremost lady magician. Well, in August of 1907, audiences at the Nickel Dime were treated to some exciting performances by the ever-popular daredevil Ezell, a free act on the public square. Ezell would stand on top of the courthouse, and it's much taller than it is today, saturating his clothing, set fire to himself, and slide down a wire attached to the Nickel Dime. He was enveloped in flame midair and bravely landed at the theater entrance. Well, let it be noted that there's no picture of the daring and death-defying Ezell that exists today. The Street Fair and Carnival of Cole Younger and Nicholas Theater Amusement Company came to town on April 1st, 1907. It was held for the benefit of the McKinney Fire Department. Mr. Younger was advertised as gentleman, soldier, outlaw, convict, and citizen again. And you may recall that in his earlier life, Cole Younger had been an infamous outlaw who rode with Frank and Jesse James. Well, the Nickel Dime Moving Picture Theater announced that it would show movies at the fairgrounds and donate all its proceeds to the Fireboys during the Cole Younger Fair. The article printed on the Courier Gazette, April 2nd, 1907, continues with the following. The balloon ascension by a woman yesterday afternoon was the most successful ever seen here. The balloon ascended to a great height. The daring lady aeronaut was scarcely visible to the eye when she cut loose in her parachute and came down safely among the awestruck throngs. Well, highlights of the week-long fair included a high dive from an 80-foot ladder by Daredevil Colton. Little Nora was on the trapeze, and the high wire walking by the champion of the world, Professor Vino. Now, I have 3 remarkable pictures of the balloon ascension that were actually taken 2 weeks later as Cole Younger's Carnival performed at Ladonia in Fannin County. The first picture shows the balloon being prepared, and you see all of the spectators around. I think they're at the train station. You can see the train, everybody's gawking. And I love the picture of the 3 little boys on the white horse. Then the next picture shows the balloon ready to ascend. They've got it ready. And the final picture shows actually the balloon ascended. And somewhere in all of that smoke has to be the lady aeronaut. I can't see her, but I guess she's there. Well, the same week, Cole Younger was thrilling audiences at the Carnival. A new moving picture show called the Nickelodeon opened on the northwest corner of the square. The Nickelodeon was just a storefront that had been converted to a theater with a screen projector and just basic seating. But movies would begin showing at 10 o'clock a.m. with continuous daily performances, and they charged 5 and 10 cents for admission. Well, the Courier Gazette stated that, quote, moving picture craze is becoming more evident every day. And no doubt the Nickelodeon will add much to the popularity of the moving picture show amusement in our city. The beautiful Chautauqua Lake, located in southwest New York, was the setting for the first educational assembly, the Chautauqua Institution, and thus the name of the Chautauqua movement that influenced small-town America and including McKinney, Texas. The Institute set out troops of artists all over the United States during the summer, entertaining and enlightening audiences wherever they went. These troops of artists travel from town to town, bringing cultural events to the small towns, music, literature, art, and other forms of entertainment that enhance the lives of those attending. The very first Chautauqua program came to McKinney in July of 1908. It was held at and sponsored by the Nickel Dime. On the first day, July 3rd, 1908, Cutter Mack Production presented George Cutter and Jesse Mack. And this was a musical comedy and a cartoon drawing duo. Well, the second day, July 4th, 1908, a lecturer and performer, Miss Olive Carrera, the little Esquimaux lady, presented herself as a native of Greenland. She reported that everyone in Greenland had shrunk to dwarfian portions. She reported that she existed on raw meat, blood, and oil from native fauna. She gave her first lecture in 1884, regaling audiences of gawking Midwesterners with stories of life in the frozen North. We assume this gentleman is her husband. She clothed herself in native costume of a polar bear skin and sang native songs. Well, it was all a hoax in that she was born in a little town in Iceland, but none of her far-fetched stories were true. But that didn't seem to impact her career, and she continued to captivate audiences until her death in 1935. On the following day, Miss Marissa Thompson presented an original, there she is, an original monologue adapted from Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm. The critics acclaimed her performance and stated, "Every character is so real that you feel you've touched another's heart and felt it beat." On the fifth day, Tuesday, July 6, 1908, a humorous lecture was given by Dr. H.W. Sears. The Courier-Gazette reported, "He is known as the Taffy Man and is presenting more taffy and less epitaphy. It is said to be one of the funniest lectures given by anyone. You cannot help but laugh. You just cannot keep sober. More fun than falls from the lips of any other man in the same length of time." On Friday, the eighth day, Senator Bob Taylor was the highlighted speaker. He was three-time governor of the great state of Tennessee, and he once ran for office against his own brother. His gifts of eloquence and personal magnetism made him a personal Chautauqua favorite. He was a wonderful storyteller, and his lectures, such as the famous Fiddle and the Bow, were printed and reprinted and abounded in sentiment and beautiful thought and diction. Well, movies became a national craze, and the arrival of the interurban in McKinney in 1908 seemed to play an important role because people who lived in the smaller towns like Anna and Allen and Melissa and Van Alstyne and even Plano rode the train to McKinney to see a movie. By October 1909, the new Alhambra movie house had opened on North Kentucky. Pictures changed daily at the Alhambra, with the owner advertising special attention to women and children, which makes us think they were mainly showing comedies. Well, the Happy Hour Theater, a motion picture and vaudeville theater, was located on East Louisiana, where the Apostle of Sunshine, Mr. John Borland, would greet everyone with joy for just 5 and 10 cents. John was very congenial with a jovial disposition, and the amusement-loving audiences grew. Mr. Borland, the Apostle of Sunshine, spared neither time nor expense to get the best attractions money could buy. These two theaters, the Alhambra and the Happy Hour, forced the Opera House to change over to a 3-reeler house the same month, with live shows only occasionally. The last big event staged at the Opera House was the Collin County Oratorical Contest, and that was held on March 26, 1910. 14 students from various schools in the county competed before a vast throng of enthusiastic and cheering citizens for $180 in prize money. Well, on March 28, 1910, at 6:20 p.m., fire broke out in the McKinney Opera House on the east end of the stage. Despite the gallant effort of the McKinney Fire Department, the building was badly damaged, and the interior was a mess of charred and blackened ruins. The era of opera houses across the United States was drawing to a close, and movies and photoplay houses were taking their place. And sadly, the McKinney Opera House was never to be rebuilt. Now, from 1910 until 1930, about, the motion picture theaters in the open were known as Airdome theaters, and they became very popular for the late spring and summer months across America. The Airdome usually consisted of a fenced enclosure or a canvas 8 to 10 feet high, erected upon stakes to form an enclosed yard. At one end, a projection house or platform was built. At the other end, a picture screen of usual theater size was erected with a platform for vaudeville performances. Chairs were arranged before the screen as in any motion picture theater. The open-air movie theaters were designed for fair weather only and escaping summer heat when big city or small country town. This one is full of children. This has to be a small country town. Now, this particular Airdome sat over 3,000 people. How would you like to be sitting on the back row? Be a little hard to see, wouldn't it? Well, as early as 1910, McKinney had at least one Airdome, as evidenced by the following newspaper article you see here on May 4th, 1910. The play St. Elmo was highly acclaimed in the paper. Now, McKinney actually had two Airdomes. The grand opening for the Happy Hour was celebrated on July 4th, 1910, with its competition, the Columbia, opening a few months later on April 6th, 1911. The Happy Hour Airdome showed live plays, films that promised thrills, tears, laughter, romance, tragedy, and comedy. Well, the Columbia Airdome, built in 1911, was soon remodeled into an all-year-round theater in order to make it comfortable for the theater-going customers during the winter months. Now, by November of 1912, Fletcher Pope was building a full-size, state-of-the-art theater. Doesn't that look nice? It was located across from the new interurban station and the popular location of the Columbia Theater. It had a full stage and dressing rooms for actors in live performances, as well as a screen for showing films. Now, it's June 14th, 1913, and the Pope Theater is celebrated with its opening performance. And this is an actual program from that first performance. The new theater became a source of pride to the citizens, and without a doubt, the Pope Theater became one of the best furnished photo playhouses in the entire South. Newspapers of the day were filled with events of the Pope. Photo plays, speakers from local clubs, demonstrations of new products, graduation exercises, high school drama productions, and a succession of spectacular vaudeville events. Without a doubt, the highlight of events presented at the Pope was a speech given on March 10th, 1918 by William Jennings Bryan, former Secretary of State and three-time candidate for the presidency of the United States. The Reverend Wallace of First Christian Church introduced Mr. Bryan as, quote, the great commoner and America's greatest living private citizen. Mr. Bryan encouraged the audience to buy Liberty bonds to support Woodrow Wilson, President Woodrow Wilson, and women's suffrage, and by all means vote for prohibition. He wrapped up at midnight and boarded a train for Chicago. Well, the high level of entertainment the Pope offered lasted into the 1920s, and many films considered classics today were shown to enthusiastic McKinney audiences. On March 17, 1926, the Lon Chaney production of The Phantom of the Opera, billed as the wildest, weirdest, most wonderful story ever thrown on any screen, met with reactions of horror from the viewers. He's here, the cry rang out from 1,000 throats. and then all was silent. Lights grew dim, strong men turned cowards, beautiful women grew faint as thousands feared him. At least that's what the advertisement said in the Courier Gazette. Well, by October 8th, 1928, the Ritz Theater opened with great fanfare. It was originally called the Robe and Rowley Movie House, and you'll see it on the front, your left part of the screen. Total construction was $30,000. The highest quality films were shown there rather than the Pope that had been reduced to showing the more sensational B films. The Pope Theater became the Rio on June 4th, 1945. The Rio specialized in second showings of first-run films, detective and Western movies, as well as sensational movies. An example of sensationalism was the film The Outlaw, starring Jane Russell, the girl with the summer hot lips and the winter cold heart, showing on December 12th and 13th, 1947. On May 5th, or at about 3:15, a young woman walked up to the box office of the Rio Theater, opened her purse, and asked the sales lady for a ticket to the picture show. She then drew a .38 caliber pistol from her purse and fired 3 shots through the ticket window. The sales lady was hit and died from her wounds, and the Rio never recovered and eventually closed down. Now let's visit the Ritz Theater again, known to many of us in our youth. On October 8th, 1928, McKinney's newest movie venue, the R&R Ritz Theater, opened with a nighttime-only screening of Our Dancing Daughters. The film starred Joan Crawford, Anita Page, and Johnny Mack Brown. I always thought Johnny Mack just wore a cowboy hat and rode a horse, but he dances here. So I don't know if you remember that or not. But located on the square at the corner of Virginia and Kentucky streets, the facility boasted the most modern projections, screen, and sound suitable for audiences. Mr. Roy L. Brockman, along with his brother Tom, were 2 of the original owners. They also owned the Queen Theater. Though no longer operating, the Queen Theater building remained intact and adjoined the elegant new movie house. Roy served as the theater's managing partner. The Queen had opened in 1915 and was closed by 1922. So in 1929, even though the building was still new, the partners agreed they had to update, and they installed air conditioning. Well, the move was a shrewd one and ensured a full house every weekend during the spring, summer, and much of the fall. The first talking picture to win an Academy Award was Broadway Melody. The Courier reports Broadway Melody came to the newly renovated Ritz air-conditioned as first all talking, all singing, and all dancing production. It is easily one of the best brought to the Ritz. Every moment of this great production reveals new miracles of the talking screen. From its opening, Mr. Brockman made sure the Ritz gave back to the people who supported it. Toys and canned goods also were used to purchase a movie ticket at different times throughout the theater's history. It's impossible to know how many people were helped over the years because of the offer of a free movie. Well, Mr. Brockman had a strong commitment to his community. During World War II, the Ashburn General Hospital on Tennessee Street opened with 500 beds, and the staff included hundreds of military. Well, Mr. Brockman was a World War I veteran who was awarded the Purple Heart, and he refused to allow any military personnel to pay for a movie ticket until Japan surrendered. Here's a picture of the Great Sioux Uprising that was released in 1953 and showed sometime that year. Now there's a small bookstore to the left there located, and I'll tell you more about that in just a moment. Well, in 1950 saw many changes for the Ritz and for the Brockman family. They opened the McKinney Drive-In in 1950. My friend R.D. Foster found this very scarce picture for me. There aren't too many of those around. The Robe introduced moviegoers to the wide world of CinemaScope, and changes had to be made at the Ritz. The original movie screen, the most modern available in 1928, was small enough to fit against the back wall of the stage. However, movies filmed in the new cinematic format required a larger projection area. Because of its size, the new screen completely covered the stage and therefore put an end to the live shows. Well, I told you about the bookstore that was located on the front corner, and that's where Pumps is today. When the feature film was based on a novel, such as From Here to Eternity or To Kill a Mockingbird, the owner of the store would make a display of that book in her front window of her shop. Well, the movies rotated every 2 or 3 days back then, and she was constantly changing her front window. I mentioned R.D. Foster just a moment ago. Well, he is currently a local musician and writer, wonderful writer, and he worked at the Ritz from 1963 until 1966 while he was a student at McKinney High School. He remembers getting a small paycheck. Big perks were movies free and popcorn and drinks. So the 2 movies, here's the one he remembers having the longest lines, To Hell and Back with Audie Murphy. And you remember Audie Murphy grew up right down the road in Farmersville. And Old Yeller, also the beach party movies of the early 1960s. And of course, anything with Elvis in it was guaranteed to have a long line and a full house. Well, over the years from 1931, the movie theaters came and they went. One of the early theaters was the Texas, and it had modern seats, a balcony, and beautifully decorated walls. Well, in August of 1935, Miss Mae West came to the Texas and Going to Town. If you wanted to win a pair of free tickets, you could register to create a costume that was streamlined in the new Mae West style. There were to be 20 pair of tickets to be awarded. Contestants were to sketch out a version of Mae West Streamlined and mail it to the editor of the Courier-Gazette. Well, most of us would cringe or even leave if we found ourselves in the R&R Ritz Theater on that October night when Joan Crawford made her first appearance on McKinney's newest movie screen in Our Dancing Daughters. We would quickly grow frustrated, squinting at the screen while the picture was brought into focus during the newsreel. The whir and click of the projector fighting its way through a haze of cigarette smoke would distract us from the Vitaphone soundtrack. We'd get impatient waiting for the reels to be changed, grumbling at the interruption. Maybe worst of all, we would have to sit still, all dressed up, 2 hours, no air conditioning, in a dress or a coat and tie. Well, stadium seating and digital sound and pictures and drink and meal service have spoiled us, haven't they? Most moviegoers won't tell stories about the theaters we frequent today. If we can't make it to the theater with the movies playing, we order it on Blu-ray or wait for it on Netflix. One thing hasn't changed, though, since the Great Train Robbery showed for the first time in 1904. Movies are still magical, taking us on adventures we could never have on our own. A theater is the portal, an enchanted mirror, perhaps, or a fantastical train station that sends us on our journey and welcomes us back to reality, a little happier, a little more relaxed for having spent a couple of hours away from our daily cares. Well, the Ritz Theater filled that role for 46 years before closing its doors in 1974. Today, in addition to helping our downtown thrive with its unique shops and restaurants, the Ritz gives us a glimpse of McKinney's past. The current owner completely remodeled the building, and today the Ritz is home to specialty shops, wine bars, law offices, mortgage brokers, and salons. And 90 years after opening its doors for the first time, Roy Brockman's building is giving back to the community he loved. And that concludes it, Miss Zoe.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Pat. Oh my gosh. That I will say that is one of the things that I personally love about downtown McKinney is they've taken everything old and they still use it and it's still relevant and they've updated it for now and people can still enjoy the architecture and the history that's there instead of knocking everything down and making it shiny. I was born in the wrong time. I love the old architecture. I'm a huge Art Deco fan myself. So, goodness gracious, if anyone has any questions, you can put those in the chat to answer Curtis's question. So we will be posting a copy of this. We are recording this event, so we will be posting it on our YouTube channel. So if you go to youtube.com and you search for Celebration Magazine Live, we'll be posting this on our channel. Give us till next week to get that up there, but it will be available for you to review it. Everyone is saying so interesting, great research, wonderful presentation, well done, love it, grew up in Collin County, always enjoy learning about its history. Thanks so much. Amazing history. Merritt Carroll said Charles made the pictures possible. We do have to thank Charles. Charles, stick your head in camera there. So we can see
here he is. I want to say this is my very special technical assistant. No, he's my specialist, not my assistant. He is the one that put it all together, but made sure that all of my photos were photoshopped and all of that good stuff. He's pretty good.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job. This is a great question. So Christy N wanted to know, do they know who the woman was that robbed the theater and was she ever apprehended?
I never saw any follow-up on that. As far as I'm sure she was, but I don't know what fate she met. So, yeah. But yeah, there's just a lot of things in the history that are just so interesting to me. And I'm glad you all enjoyed it. So
yeah,
it is. And I wanted to say a little bit of appreciation. We're talking about Charles here. Well, you never do all this by yourself. And I had a very special older friend named Bill Haynes, and Bill is deceased now, but he was a researcher and he was very involved at the museum. And I used a lot of his old research. I found it after he passed away and just so many things that led me to where I needed to go. And and I mentioned my friend R.D. Foster. And
we know and love RD. He's done stuff with us, and I know we're going to do it again too.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Well, RD is right now in the hospital, and he is recovering.
Good.
And I'm sure he would have been here today if he could have been, but he is very special. And I wanted to thank Mary Carol and Kristen. They're always there saying, have you seen this? Have you seen that? Well, why don't you put this in? Let's do this program. So
Well,
always encouraging.
And speaking of programs, we have more planned for the future with the Collin County History Museum, and Pat's going to be presenting. The next one is Bonnie
It
and
is
Clyde.
April 27th.
Yes.
I'm going to be taking you on a fast ride with Ralph Fultz and Bonnie and Clyde, so you can't miss it.
I am super excited for that one. Even when I was a kid, for some reason, the story of Bonnie and Clyde, it was always fascinating to me. So I can't wait. Everyone, please do take yourselves off mute. I would love to have a round of applause and some noise for Pat. She did a fantastic job.
Wonderful.
Wonderful, wonderful. Good to see you all.
Good job.
Hey, I have something I wanted to tell them about the museum opening.
Yes.
I think many of you will want to know that in March, we will be having tours that you can register for. So if you go to the Collin County History Museum.org on the website, you can find where you can sign up and you all can come as a group. That we try to do it on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, but we will take special accommodations if that is what you need. And then in April, we will be doing our regular schedule of 10 to 4, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And given anything unforeseen, we hope that's what happens. That's our
that
plan.
would be wonderful. And I'm sure if you call and do one of those private tours and you say you're one of the celebration people, I know they'll take good care of you.
You just come on. We're ready for you.
Most definitely. And as she said, Collin County History Museum.org. The web address is in my screen right there. You can also find their information in the magazine. Pat is writing articles in there, so make sure you check out the next article that's coming out. We were talking about it before we started today, before everybody joins. And you can find their information on our website too, or if you need, you can call us here at Celebration Magazine and we will make sure we get you to the right place. So thank you once again, everybody. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Mary Carol. Thank you, Kristen. Did I hear someone say they have a question? Maybe it was my